Hello, good morning, everyone. Let me turn this up. Good morning, happy Monday. If I look tired, it's because I am, but also like emotionally charged, so it's fine. I'll give it a couple minutes before we start, but I hope you are well, or as well as you possibly can be, given life right now and its circumstances. This is my hair. Let me try my best to actually come off presentable. But today is a special Monday, even though all Mondays are special. But this Monday specifically, we're going to be talking about the first full moon of 2021, which is this Thursday, and it is in the sign of Leo, which is my natal moon. So I'm like really excited about it. Also, the 30th, which I believe is this Saturday, will be entering officially the next Mercury retrograde. So I think it's important that we talk a bit about that. I'll talk more into depth about the retrograde once we get a bit closer. So like that Monday, because there's a lot of themes, especially going into like February, and in particular around Valentine's Day. The astrological weather is going to be kind of insane. So I'll talk more about it like next week, but I'll give you an intro on what it is. I also have some cards pulled to what we'll do today in case this is your first time joining, or if you're watching this on the replay. We'll talk a little bit about the astro weather. We will do some journaling together, some breath work, and send ourselves off to have an amazing week. So without further ado, let me just pull up the notes that I've taken on said astrological weather, so that I'm not just all over the place with what I'm saying. But yeah, so before we even get into it, let us just ground ourselves by just taking one quick breath together. So wherever you are, I invite you to move your body in any way that feels natural and that feels like it needs to organically move. Oof, it's always the neck and the hips. I feel like that's where we store so much tension. And when you're ready, I invite you to meet me in the middle, just taking a deep breath in through the nose. Holding that. Sighing it out. Taking another deep breath in through the nose. Holding that. Sighing it out. And with full awareness of your body and the environment in which your body is in right now, noticing any sounds, any sensations. Know that you are safe, held, and exactly where you need to be. And I invite you to bring your hands to heart center. And connecting to your core self, let's just set an intention, not only for our time together today, but an intention for the week, an intention for perhaps an emotion you'd like to feel, a goal you'd like to hit. A loose end you'd like to tie up. And maybe even just one word to be the theme going forward. Feeling that intention be planted. Taking one deep breath in. And sighing that out. We can come back. Move your body just to serve some tea while we come back. The intention that I set was to honor my confidence a bit deeper, and that is exactly in alignment with what we're going to talk about today with the full moon in Leo. It is very much having to do with how can we come back to our roar, to our specific expression, and why our specific expression is so unique and so authentic. So let's get into the tea. I hope that you feel more intentional, more grounded. This Thursday, we have the first full moon of 2021, and it is in the sign of Leo. Like I said earlier, this is my natal sign. So just to give you sort of like an idea of what a moon in Leo placement looks like, it's a placement that very much upholds play and creativity and expression and sort of embedding laughter in everything that is. So when we have our natal moon, mind you, there are some other aspects that are going to make this experience a bit more specific, but in a general sense, this is going to be a beautiful week for us to come back to our own creative expression. Right now, we have a stellium in Aquarius. So there are a lot of planets that are calling us back to be in our minds, to overthink things, to really, I think, and let me know if this resonates with you, but a lot of us have been sort of like mentally exhausted, a lot of drainage going on because we have, when so many signs are in an air placement, we're very much working cerebrally. So we may be trying to squeeze logic out of everything. We may be called to want to figure everything out with our mind and our words. And so coming back to this like fiery placement is something that we really need because it's going to bring us back to our bodies. It's going to bring us back to like, okay, when I get outside of my head, what is it that my body wants to do? And if you consider yourself to be a creative or expressive being, if you've been feeling any sort of like creative block, this is going to be an amazing transit for you to come back to, what do I want to create just for the sake of creating? What is coming out of my body? What is feeling leading me to? Coming back to feeling, right? Because Aquarius can be so logical and thus so detached, so aloof, so outside of it. So obviously the polar opposite sign, that's why we have a full moon of Aquarius, is in Leo. The sun is in Aquarius and moon is in Leo. So we want to come back to, what does my expression look like when it is not thought, when it is not overthought, and when it is just felt? So I really, really, really encourage you, if you take any homework from this, would be to explore what ideas that honor your creative expression, explore whatever comes up and maybe just act on it. And don't think about how will people receive this? How am I going to get this sponsored? How am I going to execute this in a way that makes sense, that is logical, that doesn't take too much of the time that I need to do whatever is productive? Take that all out of the equation and just focus on, what do I want to create? And how can I start immediately? Another thing that's really in alignment, and I pulled some cards, so don't let me forget to tell you what the cards are. But another thing that's coming up very much in alignment with this lunar transit is honoring our confidence again, because Leo moons, if there's anything that they are known for, just the Leo in general, it's this sense of self-awareness in a way that is optimistic and positive, right? Knowing that I am the shit and I deserve to feel like I am the shit because of X, Y, and Z. And sometimes when we're so cerebral, we can get very hard on ourselves, especially just outside of what's going on astrologically. I think what's going on in terms of this pandemic has made us compare how productive we are, compare where we are physically, just a lot of like comparison with idealistic images. And so the Leo moon is coming back to say, fuck all of the outside noise. This is why you're special. And let's like play a bit deeper with why it is that you're special. So if you have a talent that gives you a lot of confidence, how can you honor that a bit deeper? How can you maybe take a new certification, or how can you dedicate more time to that? How can you really draw out this confidence that comes from this activity? Or if you're just confident in your physical appearance, how can I honor that confidence a bit deeper? How can I dress myself up a bit more? How can I make sure that I'm seen more? How can I post more selfies? Just how can I honor? And that's why today we're going to be working with the solar plexus, and why I'm wearing yellow, because it's very much a time to come back to our confidence. Like, you've had enough time to sulk. You've had enough time to feel insecure. You've had enough time to harp on the reasons why you don't feel like you're the shit. Now let's look at why you should feel like you're the shit, and how can we act accordingly? How can I make sure that I'm showing up and acting as if I feel that way? Because truthfully, the secret about confidence is that it's not about looking a certain way. It's about feeling like you look a certain way, and then everyone will feed off of that energy, right? So that is in alignment with not only physical appearance, but also the work that you put out. How can I be more confident in my creative expressions? How can I, if you're showing up saying, well, I did this small thing and I hope that you guys like it, or like, this is just a rough draft or something that was just like, how do you show up and say like, this came from my soul and it's amazing and you should see it? Or I know I'm a bad bitch and here I am, I have arrived. How do you make sure that you're carrying that energy with you and everything that you do and making sure that it is what is met immediately? Because if you're already thinking, I'm fat, I'm this, I'm not good enough, I'm not well equipped, that's the energy that people are going to read when you step into any sort of creative room, any sort of social room. And it's what's going to sort of define you before you are allowed to define yourself. So the Leo moon is coming strongly to say, on the other side of this portal, how are you going to make sure that you are showing up as your most confident expression and believing in so? Yes. So, oh my gosh, sorry, my voice this is like the first time I'm speaking all day. The morning is just a bit difficult for me sometimes. So let play rejuvenate you. Like I mentioned earlier, we have been in a state of overthinking, especially we've been in the shadow period of Mercury retrograde, which I'll get to in a second. But because we have been so cerebral, sometimes when you are so in your head and when you're so logic forward, you aren't allowing yourself to creative express or to feel through. So what has been coming up a lot for me, and I wanted to share with the collective, is coming back to rest and knowing that rest is productive. Rest is protest. Rest is how you are going to honor your progress, right? Because you can't pour from an empty cup and you can't move forward if your legs are no longer working. So making sure that under this lunar transit, you look at what rest and play looks like for you, and what creative expression looks like for you, and really honoring that, letting that rejuvenate you. I don't want to talk about the retrograde yet. Let me see if there's any other points with this moon that I wrote down. So it's opposing the moon. Yes. It's making aspects to Saturn, which is the planet of limitation, and a sign of Aquarius, which is a sign of rebellion. And it is also squaring Mars, the sign of action. So this is what I said about, obviously the Leo moon is something that is really positive, and I want to make sure that we're using it with positivity in mind, knowing that it can push us forward in terms of our confidence and our creative expression. However, with Saturn and Mars playing roles, you do want to be wary of the fact that this can pose some sort of argumentative nature. This can make you, especially with Mercury retrograde being in shadow period, some irritations that have been lying under the surface may be brought up to the surface. So if there's someone that you keep butting heads with, if there's something that feels stuck and stagnant, and even if there's any like lingering resentment, right? Because the adverse side of Leo, of Leo's confidence, is Leo's pride, right? So that could also be a theme that's coming up. How have you let pride, or how is somebody else letting pride play too much of a role in a certain situation, and how can you disconnect from that? How can you allow yourself, if you are the prideful one, to listen and understand and put down your ego? And also, if you recognize you are in some sort of conjunction with somebody who is being operated by their pride, how can you recognize that and remove emotion? How can you recognize that person is being led fully by ego? They're not actually listening to me, they're listening to their own voice. How am I going to remove my energy from the situation? Knowing that, that's something that can and may come up with these other aspects going on. And also, just if you feel any sort of, it's difficult because Aquarius always wants to be forward moving. Aquarius always wants to be forward moving. Aquarius always wants to evolve and grow. And when you have planets like Saturn, which is a planet of, like I said, limitation, pause, delay, playing a role, you can kind of feel like, I want to move forward, but I'm overwhelmed with the fact that forward movement seems to be out of my control. It seems to be like there's something outside of me that is stopping me, that is keeping me here. Know that that is okay. That is a universal feeling right now, outside of, like I said, astrologically. Also, the pandemic is playing a role in a lot of people feeling stagnant. I know I've experienced this as well. Just knowing that everything is temporal, everything is seasonal, and that at some point those gates are sort of going to let up. And with Mercury retrograde coming up, we really are in a re-editing, replanning stage. So if you want so badly to be in a new place or to experience a new thing, and you feel that sense of stagnancy, if you feel that looming air of stuckness, know that that is a transit and that it is going to pass. And right now, with us stepping into Mercury retrograde on, I believe, the 30th, yes, in the sign of Aquarius, it is going to be a beautiful time anyway for you to review, right? I always say retrogrades are times for reviews, re-editing, replanning, reassessing. And so the themes of it being under the sign of Aquarius is like, how can I rework what I am doing to honor something greater than myself. There's a few themes with this Mercury retrograde, and some of them are more personal, especially having to do with like boundaries, which I'll talk about. But I think what's really important with this retrograde is coming back to whatever I'm re-editing and revamping, looking at it from an aerial view instead of a personal view, right? How is whatever I am pouring my soul and my energy and my time into, how is it feeding something bigger than myself? And this doesn't mean that you need to be sort of immediately impacting on a global scale, right? This doesn't mean that you need to be like on CNN or like at this grand, but even if it means local community, even if it means 3 people, how is what I'm doing bettering someone outside of myself? And get really creative with this, because this doesn't necessarily mean that you need to take on any sort of healing position or immediately obvious healing. Because honestly, if you're in real estate, right, you're changing the course of reality, because you are gifting people with their dream homes. You're gifting people with safe spaces, sacred spaces. You're changing the world with that. So really making sure that you're getting clear on your profession and your creative expression, and knowing how does this tie into purpose and service. If you are a creative, and right, like I said, with this Leo moon, we really do want to come back to how we express ourselves creatively, because we are all creative beings. We all manifest and make things and give birth to new ideas and new projects. So coming back to your creative expression, even so, how does that feed and nourish community, right? If you write songs, if you make art, if that touches somebody, if that opens an emotion in them, that is serving the collective, that is serving a higher purpose, that is something that is divinely channeled. So making sure that you are honoring, how do I change the game? I forgot that I have cards to read. Should I read them now? I'll finish the Mercury retrograde and then I'll read the cards, because they are very accurate. So yes, going back a little bit to the Leo moon, also drama may present itself. A theme and an emotion that is directly tied to Leos is drama, right? It's wanting to express emotion at the highest level possible. So know that if events or arguments or conversations that could have gone one way but seem to just be going the more dramatic way happen, know that that is just in alignment with the Leo energy, and that also has a lot to do with pride and with ego and wanting to be heard at a grand scale instead of on a sensible scale. So just work with the energy. Like I said, knowing what's going on helps to empower us so that we can work alongside it. People may be feeling dramatic. Let it out. Just let it out. Even if you're the one who's feeling dramatic, let yourself put on a play. Let yourself put on a show. So fixed signs, if you are Taurus, Scorpio, Aquarius, or Leo, or if you have any major placements in any of those signs, this week you are especially going to feel it, especially with the Mercury retrograde in the sign of Aquarius, which is a fixed sign. So many planets, so many major planets are in the sign of Aquarius. And it's just, if you are fixed, and if you have any fixed influence in your, especially in your sun, moon, rising, or even Venus and Mercury, honestly, you're just going to be faced with, how can I move forward in a more creative way? How can I stop overthinking things and just surrender control, surrender to the way that this journey unfolds on its own, divinely and protectedly so? And how can I honor my confidence? I think that is probably the biggest thing that I'd like for you to take away from this astrological breakdown. We really want to make sure we are honoring our confidence. We really want to make sure that we are acting and thinking and speaking accordingly with the most confident versions of ourselves in relation to the way that we see ourselves, the way that we allow others to see us, and the way that we create and produce art, right? Making sure that we feel confident about everything. And honestly, that saying, fake it till you make it, is much more accurate than people even give it credit. I think actually convincing yourself enough, repetitively enough, that you feel something about something will eventually morph into that, right? So thinking, even if I'm nervous about this project that I'm putting out, knowing that I gifted it from my soul, or, even though I don't feel the most confident in the way that my body is presenting, but just acting as if I do, will eventually shift your body chemistry to feel that way. And it's important that we make sure that the energy others are meeting us with is reflective of one that is confident and feeling worthy of being seen, which is all about this what this Leo full moon is all about. And this cycle is going to give us a jolt of energy, right? Like I said, with this Aquarius stellium, if you've been feeling very cerebral, if you've been feeling caught in your mind, using this fire, this push of fire to really step through that portal, this is the only thing that's going to break you out of your mind, I promise. If you've been feeling trapped in your head, you are not the only one. But if there's any transit or there's any like piece of astrological movement that's going to force you to like push through that stagnancy and actually step into a place of like action and working alongside that, it's going to be this transit. And sometimes we want to make sure that that action is being poured into editing, re-editing, reassessing, like this Mercury retrograde is telling us to. Sometimes action doesn't necessarily mean creating and like and doing, but rather like getting clear on what you want to create and what you want to do, right? Because what is notorious for Mercury retrogrades is delays, right? Anything that we start during this time period, typically we're going to come back to, typically we're going to have to maybe edit again further down the line. It's not to say that what you execute right now won't be sustainable, but there will be instances where you'll have to sort of like review it again, come back to it. You know, they always say don't sign contracts or don't travel at this time, car issues. So just being mindful of that, but not letting that stop you, but working alongside it. So working alongside it could be, okay, maybe I'm not going to hire the cast and crew of this production, but maybe I'm going to get clear on the template of it. Maybe I'm going to get clear on the planning and the production of it, and pouring my energy into getting clear in it, feeling confident in what I am putting the pieces together for, instead of actually like shooting and executing, right? If that makes sense. Please let me know if I'm just like talking out of my ass and no one knows what I'm saying, but that's kind of what the energy is right now. So a big theme, sorry that my voice is like this. I just woke up, but a big theme right now, like I said, with the Mercury retrograde, which I will go more into detail of next week, but right now, I think especially with us moving into the week where it starts, it's important to just know that it is coming up. We are in the shadow period. So if people from your past have been showing up, that is normal. That is big retrograde energy. A lot of exes want to come up. A lot of old relationships are going to surface, but it's important to, it's just important to honor them for what they are. Sometimes they're going to give you the opportunity to have much needed conversations, and that's good. It is always good to release things that you've been holding on to, tie up any loose ends. If any relationships went awry towards the end, really mending that. There's this whole debate about like whether closure is like actually just like a self-serving thing, or if closure actually exists. I think it's an individual experience. Sometimes I think having that last conversation with someone can really bring you solace. So if that opportunity is presenting itself, honor it. If you know that people are coming back from your past just to see if you really have moved on and evolved, honor that as well. But know that if it's already happening, it's because we're in the shadow period. But from the 30th to, I believe, February 20th, we'll be in the thick of Mercury retrograde. So just, you know, navigating that with as much, or navigating that aspect of it, of people from your past coming up. Also, another theme is boundaries, right? Making sure that we are honoring our boundaries, and making sure that we are maintaining boundaries for others to honor, right? So making sure that we're not allowing others to overstep and that we aren't overstepping our own boundaries. That is a huge theme with this retrograde as well. And like I mentioned earlier, just coming back to what the communal benefit of whatever your expression of power is, I think is going to be really pertinent for this retrograde. Let's see if I have anything else before I tell you. Releasing shame. I think, I don't know if I think I have that written down for the lunar transit rather than the retrograde, but I think something that I've been noticing a lot with the readings I've been doing lately, and what I think this transit is going to be really great for breaking, is releasing shame surrounding anything having to do with your form of self-expression, having to do with your truth. And this can be, you know, your sexual identity, the way that you choose to express yourself, your just releasing shame and releasing the hyperactive notion of wondering how everybody else is receiving your work. How your work is received on a public and media scale has nothing to do with you, the creator. It really does not. As long as you know that it is coming from an intentional space, as long as you know that you've created it from the place of your core, and as long as you know that it plays to some level of service outside. And that can mean that there is another creator who is too scared to step into their role as a creator, but they're seeing you do it. And that in turn mirrors permission for them to do it. That in itself is service. So focusing on that and focusing on creation instead of focusing on how it's received and reception is going to be the way to break shame and break just any shameful cycle. And yeah, I believe so. All in all, in summation, make sure to play, make sure to create, make sure to honor your confidence with everything that you do. Let go of any anger and resentment. If any drama comes up, don't egg it on, because that is like the Leo transit, like I said. Fixed signs are really going to have a lot of truths revealed, really going to have a lot of, like, I never say that the universe tests us, but you're going to be met with a lot of, I think, obstacles that are going to question whether or not you really have committed to your growth and to your healing. Me being like very fixed centered, I like speaking that for myself as well. It's already presenting itself, so that's fun. This moon cycle is going to give you a jolt of energy that you may have not experienced thus far. You may have been really cerebral, and this lunar transit is going to bring you back to your body and back to action. And with Mercury retrograde coming up, you want to make sure that that action is in alignment with planning and planning it accordingly with what you know you deserve to make and what you've been put on this earth to make and put on this earth to say and to do. How can you honor your confidence a bit more? I believe I said that. Notice where you're acting from pride and ego, and notice when anybody else is acting from pride and ego, and just honoring that, honoring the fact that because they aren't coming from a space of their higher self, how could they possibly really receive and honor and understand, right? Releasing shame and honoring your truth, letting your freak flag fly. We've had a lot of air with the Aquarius stellium, so allowing this fire moment to push you forward. Many well-needed conversations will be had. And, you know, this may present yourself with opportunities to move on from relationships, to move on from partnerships, to move on from situations and attachments that do not serve this next step in your evolution. And that is okay. That is necessary. That is good. Let it happen. And that is perfectly in alignment with the first card that I want to show you, which is sacrifice. In this deck, or rather, this is the card that in this deck is representative of the Hanged Man in the traditional tarot and the Rider-Waite. But I actually love that we got this version, which is sacrifice, because I think sacrifice is really gonna encompass this energy well. And I'll let you see the card. It's this girl, she's probably Native American, she's a queen, she has a rainbow coming out of her. And it's this idea, oh, she's probably Hawaiian actually, because I see the Hawaiian flower. But I think the notion of it, I think I need to show you the other cards so that we can understand the full story. But what came up first was sacrifice, and then material and spiritual prosperity, and victory and success. It's getting clear, especially with this Mercury retrograde, it's getting clear on what relationships, what habits, what people, places, things, attachments, and even ways of thinking have inhibited you from stepping into your most confident self, into your most abundant, into your most aligned, into your most highly vibrational self, and sacrificing it. Because sometimes it's a pretty thing you have to give up. That's what's so crazy. Sometimes I think that it's like we have this idea that like toxic relationships are very obvious, or toxic habits, or toxic just spaces and habits. Oh, I already said habits, but anything that is toxic is obvious, and we'll feel it and we'll know when something has to go, and it'll feel like, oh, it's hard to do it, but now that it's gone, it's a weight off. But like sometimes these toxic things that we need to sacrifice are actually wrapped in really pretty pink paper. Sometimes they're jobs that actually financially supplement us. Or maybe they're relationships that are not so bad. And it's hard. It's so much more difficult to sacrifice things that don't particularly feel bad, but that, you know, when you give yourself an aerial perspective, are not playing out in alignment with the highest good of everyone involved. And that's just the reality of it. But sacrifice is coming up to say, how can you give up something good for something great? How can you recognize that, you know, maybe this isn't hurting me right now, but it may hurt me in the long run. It looks like it will hurt me in the long run. My logic alongside conjunct my emotion is telling me that this is going to hurt me in the long run. And knowing that by making that difficult decision to sacrifice something that may feel good, but at the end of the day is not your highest and greatest possible outcome, that's what's going to lead you to victory and success and to material and spiritual prosperity. So really just being honest with yourself, especially during this Mercury retrograde, like just really be honest with like, what boundaries do I need? What is no longer serving me? How can I propel myself forward? So with that being said, that was a very long rundown. That was literally 30 minutes. So I apologize for that being so a lot, but now you will journal if you are open to journaling. It's my favorite part of this whole process together. So I'll have some music playing, and I have 3 prompts that I will also drop in the chat. The first one, connecting back to this full moon in Leo that we'll be experiencing on Thursday, is how can I creatively express myself, right? So like, what does me at my most creative look like? Here we go, jumping in the chat. I played some music. Just getting clear on ideas on what makes you a creative being. If anyone's just joining, we're on prompt number 1. How can I creatively express myself? So just getting clear on what makes you a creative being, especially if you don't identify as a creative being, because you are, honestly. Last minute. Perfect. How can you honor your creativity, guys? What does that look like for you? Also, let's move to this prompt, then we'll see the last one for last. So moving forward with this full moon and Leo energy, how can I feed my confidence a bit more? And this is going into, how are you thinking about yourself? How are you showing up? What words are you saying in relation to your work, in relation to yourself? Even when you get ready during the day, how are you speaking to yourself? How are you speaking out loud? How are you honoring your confidence? And how can you rework that to make it a bit more intentional? Last minute. Perfect. And the last one, which is in relation to Mercury retrograde in Aquarius, which kicks off on the 30th, once again, is how am I overstepping my own boundaries or allowing my boundaries to be overstepped? And I'll give us a little bit more time to work on this one because it is a heavier one, but a really important one. So yeah, be honest with yourself. One last today. Sorry, actually, I'm writing one last sentence and then we'll be done. Okay. Perfect. I hope that those prompts serve you. Please come back to those throughout the week if you feel the need to flesh them out a bit more, but I think they were perfectly in alignment with what's going on astrologically and energetically. And I think that boundary one is especially impertinent with this Mercury retrograde. It's really reassessing how you are honoring your energy and how you can be more intentional with that. So with that being said, now we will finish off with a breathwork meditation. Today, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to be focusing with the solar plexus. That's why I'm wearing yellow. You know, I work with color healing. Solar plexus is our confidence. It's our drive. It's our divine masculine, and it's where our Leo lives, right? So we want to make sure that when we walk into a transit that is so uplifting of our confidence and how we're showing up, that we are in a cleared space with that. So And we're going to breathe through it a bit. So wherever you are, I once again invite you to move your body, especially if any stagnancy has accumulated during our time riding together. If you're seated, maybe your hips have locked up, just moving your body in whichever way feels intuitively correct. When you are ready, you can meet me back in the middle. Finding your center and breathing in deeply through the nose. Holding that. And sighing it out. Once again, breathing in deeply through the nose. Holding that. And sighing it out. One last time, breathing in fully through the nose. Holding that. And sighing it out. And I invite you to just embrace your stillness. Feel your body. And take on the role of the observer. See if you can notice any emotions or shift in emotions. Notice whether you feel anxious, excited, motivated, or overwhelmed. Not judging any emotion, but simply seeing and observing it. Knowing however you feel is perfect and okay. As we bring our awareness to our mid-abdomen, our center of our solar plexus, I want you to envision the most confident, most powerful, most empowered version of yourself. What do they look like? What do they act like? How do they think? How do they speak? How do they spend their time? What do they do? How do they dress up? How do they dress down? Who are you at your most empowered, most powerful, most confident? Are you creative? Are you supportive? Are you expressive? cheerful, loving, charismatic, social? Are you humble? Who are you at your most confident? This version of you does not exist outside of you. This version exists right within you, in your solar plexus. And as we breathe through this energy center, I want you to visualize the physical vessel you embody now, and the physical vessel of the you that is most empowered, morphing into one physical expression. Breathing through our solar plexus looks like moving our chest out and back in, out and back in, just like this. Either through nose or an O-shaped mouth. In when you go around and out when you go back in. We'll be moving clockwise and then counterclockwise. And I want you to visualize the yellow, visualize you and your higher self morphing into one. When you're ready, we can begin. Really seeing this yellow energy moving out and around and through you, harnessing the sun in your mid-abdomen. Know that I am a confident, creative, and expressive human being. I think and act in support of my creative power. I choose to see and be seen. Taking one deep breath in the middle and switching directions on the exhale. Affirm that I am worthy of being seen. I am worthy of feeling powerful. Moving and breathing through any stagnancy, any insecurity. Breathing through any ways of thinking that inhibit you forming your own creative expression. Last few, be as intentional as possible. Taking one deep breath in. Holding that when you're mid-abdomen. And releasing. Allowing yourself to feel any shift. As people, we have seasons, we have feelings, we have emotions, we have phases that come and go, that introduce us to new parts of us and leave before we can identify. And you can always embody the version of you that is most fitting, whether you want to embody the hermit and stay away from social activity and relish in your own energy, whether you want to embody the fool and embark on a new journey with curiosity and adventure at play. If you want to embody the moon and emotionally expel everything you feel, or you want to embody the magician and manifest all of your life's desires, however you feel is within your accessibility. And so, under this moon transit, I invite you to call in and embody fully who you are when you feel worthy of being seen, worthy of being recognized, and knowing that that worth comes alongside setting boundaries, cleaning up your inner dialogue, and being intentional with the time you spend and the way you use your energy and who you use your energy and time with. As we come back to our days and embark back on our journeys, I set the intention that you see your worth unconditionally and you act accordingly. That you release and sacrifice any habits, thoughts, people, and attachments that don't serve you at your highest vibration. And that you gift yourself with grace and with the bravery and resilience to release these habits, ways of thinking, and people that are naturally being removed from your path anyway. Under this Mercury retrograde and in this lunar transit, we are stepping even further along our journey of empowerment, embodiment, and the meeting of potential. The meeting of pure highest potential. Coming back to our bodies, taking one deep breath in, raising our hands above our heads, and releasing, bringing your hands to heart center, coming back to that intention you may have made in the beginning of our time together, or a new intention that has come to your mind now that you have more information on what's going on. I invite you to plant it, honor it, feel it, know that it's yours. Thank you so much for spending your morning with me. I hope that this served you. I apologize if there was too much noise outside of my room that may have inhibited your focus, but you're a powerful creative being, and this lunar transit and Mercury retrograde are only here to reintroduce you to that. So thank you so much. I adore you. If you feel called to leave a donation, all the information is in my bio. And otherwise, walk with grace, walk with whatever you see God to be, and I will see you next Monday. I also am doing this tomorrow with Outer Reach. And if you're in the South Florida area, I'll be talking about the moon at Dancing Lion on the full moon event on the 28th, which will be amazing. And yeah, that's all. Have an amazing week, and I love you. Bye.